What if God isn't a being but a frequency you can access? In God is a Frequency, we're about to shatter everything you thought you knew about divine consciousness. This isn't speculation or religious theory. We're diving into groundbreaking research, where quantum physics meets ancient wisdom, revealing truths that powerful institutions have worked for centuries to conceal. Drawing from classified Vatican documents, quantum research, and Hermetic teachings, we've uncovered a pattern that explains why certain spiritual knowledge has been systematically suppressed throughout history. By the end of this video, you'll understand the scientific evidence for God as a frequency, how to access this divine energy within yourself, and why this knowledge transforms everything about your existence. You're not just watching a video, you're accessing knowledge that could revolutionize your understanding of reality. Let's begin with the fundamental question. Why have we been conditioned to see God as separate from ourselves? Part 1. Beyond human understanding. In the depths of the Vatican archives lies a mysterious manuscript from 1256 AD, the Codex Frequentia, discovered by a monk named Brother Thomas during the height of the medieval period. The manuscript contains an account that would challenge everything we think we know about divine communication. Brother Thomas, known for his deep meditative practices, documented an extraordinary experience that occurred during one of his prolonged fasts in the monastery's underground chapel. On the 40th day of his spiritual retreat, something unprecedented happened. The ancient stones of the chapel began to vibrate at a frequency that seemed to penetrate his very being. In his detailed writings, he described how the physical world around him appeared to dissolve, revealing what he called the fabric of creation itself. What makes this account particularly fascinating is how it aligns with passages from the book of Ezekiel, written thousands of years earlier. Ezekiel's vision of the divine throne chariot, the Merkabah, describes wheels within wheels and creatures that seem to vibrate with living energy. The prophet's attempt to describe his experience bears striking similarities to how quantum physicists today describe the fundamental nature of reality, as patterns of energy and frequency rather than solid matter. But the story doesn't end there. Throughout history, mystics and prophets across different cultures have attempted to describe similar experiences. The Sufis speak of fana, a state of dissolution into divine frequency. Hindu texts describe nada Brahma, the universe as sound vibration. Even Moses' encounter with the burning bush takes on new meaning when we understand that the Hebrew word used to describe God's presence, hajmal, actually refers to a type of vibrating energy. The climax of Brother Thomas's account comes when he realizes something profound, that this frequency wasn't external to him at all. In his words, the vibration I sought to understand was not separate from my own being. It was as if I had been a musical note trying to comprehend the entire symphony, only to realize I was part of the music itself. This realization aligns perfectly with quantum field theory's understanding that at our most fundamental level we are not solid matter but rather patterns of energy and frequency. The implications are staggering. What if our ancestors weren't trying to describe a separate, distant deity but rather attempting to articulate their experience of connecting with the fundamental frequency of existence itself? This perspective explains why traditional religious institutions have often opposed mystical practices that enable direct divine experience. It threatens their position as intermediaries between humanity and the divine. By maintaining the concept of God as a separate, unreachable being, they've effectively created a spiritual firewall between humanity and direct divine connection. Consider what Jesus meant when he said, "The kingdom of God is within you." Was he literally describing what quantum physics now reveals, that we are all expressions of the same fundamental divine frequency? As we transition to understanding the scientific principles behind these experiences, remember Brother Thomas's final words in the manuscript. The frequency of God is not something to be found, but rather something to be remembered, for it is the very essence of what we are. This understanding leads us to our next exploration, how modern science, particularly through the work of Nikola Tesla, has begun to validate what mystics have known for millennia. Part 2. The Science of Divine Energy. Let me craft a compelling narrative about the science of divine energy that weaves together science, spirituality, and historical context. In the summer of 1899, in the shadow of Pikes Peak, Colorado, Nikola Tesla made a discovery that would shake the foundations of our understanding of God and consciousness. While conducting experiments in his Colorado Springs laboratory, Tesla observed something extraordinary. Patterns of energy that seemed to pulse with the very late one night, as electrical storms raged across the Rocky Mountains, Tesla's instruments detected what he called stationary waves, frequencies that appeared to resonate with the Earth itself. In his journal, he wrote words that would prove prophetic. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. What Tesla couldn't have known then was how deeply this observation would align with ancient spiritual wisdom. 2,000 years earlier, in the dusty scrolls of the Dead Sea, the Essenes, an ancient Jewish sect, wrote of what they called the divine frequency. In texts that would later be hidden from public view, they described a state of consciousness where human awareness could merge with what they called the light of creation. These writings, only recently translated, bear striking similarities to Tesla's scientific observations. But the story goes even deeper. In 1925, quantum physicist Werner Heisenberg made a discovery that would bridge these ancient teachings with modern science. His uncertainty principle revealed that at its most fundamental level, reality isn't made of solid matter, but of waves and probabilities, frequencies of potential. This revolutionary finding aligned perfectly with what mystics had been teaching for millennia, that the material world is an illusion, and beneath it lies a realm of pure energy and infinite possibility. The implications were staggering. If everything is frequency, from the chair you're sitting on to the thoughts in your mind, then what we call God might not be a distant deity, but rather the prime frequency from which all other frequencies emerge. This is where quantum physics intersects with the mystical concept of the void, a state of pure potential that both ancient sages and modern scientists describe as the source of all creation. Consider this. When scientists at CERN use their quantum detectors to observe particles at their smallest level, they discover something astonishing. Particles seem to exist as waves of probability until they're observed. This phenomenon, known as quantum superposition, mirrors what spiritual masters have taught about divine consciousness, that it exists in a state of pure potential until consciousness interacts with it. But perhaps the most compelling evidence comes from recent studies in neuroscience. Research at the HeartMath Institute has shown that the human heart generates the body's most powerful electromagnetic field, one that can be measured several feet away from the body. When people enter deep meditative states, this field changes frequency in ways that mirror the Earth's own electromagnetic resonances, the same phenomena Tesla observed over a century ago. The convergence of these discoveries points to something profound. What ancient texts called divine consciousness and what modern physics calls the quantum field might be one and the same, a fundamental frequency that underlies all of existence. This understanding shatters the traditional model of God as a separate being and suggests instead that divinity is a frequency we can all access, a vibration we can all tune into. But here's the revolutionary implication. If God is indeed a frequency, and we are capable of aligning with this frequency through our consciousness, then we aren't separate from the divine, we are expressions of it. The same energy that powers the cosmos flows through our very being. This isn't just theoretical, it's measurable, observable, and most importantly, accessible. As we begin to understand this scientific framework for divine energy, we must ask ourselves, why have these profound connections between science and spirituality been kept separate for so long? The answer lies in ancient wisdom traditions that have preserved these truths through the ages, hidden in plain sight. Let's explore how ancient civilizations understood and utilized this knowledge in ways that modern science is only beginning to comprehend. Part 3. Ancient wisdom meets modern understanding. In the dusty depths of Egypt's ancient libraries, a remarkable document was discovered in 1945. The Nag Hammadi manuscripts. These texts contain something extraordinary, detailed descriptions of frequency and vibration as the fundamental nature of existence. But this wasn't just ancient speculation, it was a sophisticated understanding that would take modern science thousands of years to confirm. Picture this: ancient Egyptian priests gathering in underground temples, teaching initiates about what they called the hum of creation. They described how everything in existence vibrated at different frequencies, from the lowest physical matter to the highest divine consciousness. This wasn't mere philosophy, it was a practical science they used to build monuments that still puzzle engineers today. The Hermetic texts speak of an ancient sage, Hermes Trismegistus, who proclaimed, "As above, so below." This wasn't just a poetic phrase, it was a precise description of how frequency patterns repeat themselves across all levels of existence. The biblical book of John opens with, "In the beginning was the Word," but the original Greek term, logos, refers not just to speech, but to vibration itself. This understanding appears repeatedly in sacred texts worldwide. Consider the Dead Sea Scrolls, where the Essenes wrote about the music of the spheres, describing how celestial bodies emanated specific frequencies that influenced Earth and humanity. This mirrors exactly what modern astronomers discovered in 2003 when they detected sound waves emanating from black holes, frequencies that match precisely the mathematical ratios described in these ancient texts. But here's where it gets extraordinary. In 1952, scientists at the University of Michigan discovered that DNA emits specific frequencies. When they mapped these frequencies, they found patterns identical to those described in the ancient Egyptian Book of the Dead as the sounds of life. These Egyptian priests had somehow known about DNA frequencies thousands of years before we had the technology to detect them. The biblical prophet Ezekiel described seeing wheels within wheels in the sky, filled with eyes and emanating light. For centuries, this was dismissed as mystical imagery. But when quantum physicists began observing atomic structure through electron microscopes, they found patterns strikingly similar to Ezekiel's description: spinning particles within particles, each generating its own frequency field. The ancient Sanskrit texts speak of Nada Brahma, the universe as sound vibration. They detailed how specific frequency patterns could affect consciousness and matter. In 2019, researchers at MIT accidentally confirmed this when they discovered that certain frequency patterns could alter brainwave patterns and even cellular structure, exactly as described in these ancient texts. The Dead Sea Scrolls contain detailed instructions for what they called light generation, a process modern physicists now recognize as quantum coherence. These ancient mystics had somehow grasped quantum principles millennia before quantum mechanics was developed. But perhaps most startling is this: ancient Sumerian tablets describe what they called the gods communicating through frequency patterns in space. In 2020, astronomers detected mysterious frequency patterns coming from space, patterns that match the mathematical descriptions in these ancient texts with astonishing. This convergence of ancient wisdom and modern science isn't coincidental. It suggests something profound. Our ancestors possessed advanced knowledge of the universe's fundamental nature, knowledge we're only now rediscovering with our most sophisticated technology. But if this understanding of God as frequency has been known for millennia, why did we lose it? And more importantly, how can we personally access and utilize this knowledge? The answer lies in understanding how human consciousness interfaces with these divine frequencies. Let me craft a compelling narrative about the power of human consciousness that weaves together ancient wisdom, modern understanding, and profound revelations. Part 4. The Power of Human Consciousness. Unlocking Your Divine Potential. In the winter of 1944, during one of humanity's darkest hours, an extraordinary event occurred in a small meditation hall in New York City. Neville Goddard, a spiritual teacher who would later revolutionize our understanding of consciousness, sat in deep meditation when he experienced what he described as the complete dissolution of individual consciousness into the infinite mind of God. This moment would parallel an ancient truth found in the biblical passage, "Be still and know that I am God," Psalm 46 verse 10. But this wasn't just another spiritual experience. What Goddard discovered that night would later be validated by quantum physics and neuroscience, revealing a truth so profound that it challenges everything we think we know about human consciousness and divine connection. Consider the story of Moses at the burning bush. When Moses asks for God's name, the response is simply, "I am that I am." This seemingly cryptic answer holds a key to understanding the true nature of consciousness. The ancient Hermetic texts teach us that this "I am" presence is not separate from us. It is the very essence of our consciousness. In 1952, a groundbreaking experiment at the Institute of Noetic Sciences demonstrated something remarkable. When individuals entered deep meditative states, their brain waves showed patterns identical to those theoretically predicted for quantum field coherence. This scientific discovery echoed what mystics had been saying for millennia. Human consciousness is not confined to our physical brains, but is a localized expression of a universal field of awareness. This understanding becomes even more fascinating when we examine the Dead Sea Scrolls teaching about the divine light within human beings. The ancient Essenes believed that each person carried a spark of divine consciousness, but this knowledge was deliberately obscured in later religious teachings. Why? Because understanding this truth fundamentally changes the power dynamic between religious institutions and individuals. Think about this. In every moment of your existence, you are not just observing reality, you are actively participating in its creation. The biblical phrase, "made in God's image," takes on a whole new meaning when we understand that our consciousness is not just a receiver of reality, but a creator of it. Let me share a modern example that illustrates this power. In 2019, a study at Princeton University's Global Consciousness Project recorded unprecedented coherence in random number generators during a worldwide meditation event. The implications were staggering. Human consciousness wasn't just observing reality, it was influencing it at a quantum level. This brings us to the most crucial understanding. Your individual consciousness is not separate from the divine, it is a focal point of divine awareness experiencing itself through you. The Bible speaks of the kingdom of heaven being within you, but what if this wasn't metaphorical? What if it was describing the actual nature of consciousness? When you truly grasp this, everything changes. Every thought, every intention, every moment of awareness becomes an act of divine creation. This is why ancient mystical traditions emphasize the importance of meditation and inner stillness. These practices weren't just for relaxation, they were technologies for accessing this divine creative power. The most profound revelation is this: you are not just connected to the divine frequency, you are an individual expression of it. Your consciousness is not something you have, it's what you are. This understanding demolishes the artificial boundary between human and divine, revealing a truth that religious institutions have long sought to obscure. The power to create reality lies within your own consciousness. But this revelation raises an even more intriguing question. If human consciousness is this powerful, have there been others throughout history who understood and utilized this knowledge? The answer leads us to a fascinating exploration of advanced beings and their influence on human spiritual development. Part 5. Beyond Human Origins. Imagine for a moment the year 1945 in the remote Pacific Islands. World War II has just ended, and the indigenous Melanesian people are witnessing something extraordinary. Massive metal birds descending from the sky, bringing cargo and supplies to military bases. But what happened next would challenge our understanding of how divine beliefs are formed. The natives, having never seen aircraft or modern technology, began worshiping these machines and their operators as gods. They built elaborate wooden replicas of airplanes, constructed bamboo control towers, and performed rituals wearing handmade military uniforms. These became known as cargo cults, and they reveal a profound truth about humanity's relationship with advanced beings. But this phenomenon isn't unique to the 20th century. Throughout human history, similar patterns emerge when advanced civilizations encounter those less technologically developed. Consider the ancient Sumerian texts, which tell of the Anunnaki, beings who descended from the sky in flying vessels. The tablets describe these entities with remarkable precision. They possessed technology beyond human comprehension, shared knowledge of astronomy and mathematics, and were regarded as gods by the Sumerians. The biblical account of Ezekiel provides another fascinating parallel. In the first chapter of Ezekiel, the prophet describes a vision of what he calls divine beings, arriving in what modern engineers have noted bears striking resemblance to advanced machinery. Wheels within wheels, beings of light, and vessels descending from the heavens. Was Ezekiel, like the Pacific Islanders, attempting to describe advanced technology through the limited lens of his understanding? The Hindu Vedas speak of the Vimanas, flying machines piloted by beings with extraordinary capabilities. These ancient Sanskrit texts provide detailed descriptions of aerial vehicles, including their construction and operation. The similarities between these accounts and modern UFO reports are striking, suggesting a pattern that spans cultures and millennia. Archaeological evidence adds another layer to this mystery. From the precise construction of the pyramids to the inexplicably advanced astronomical knowledge of ancient civilizations, we find traces of knowledge that seems beyond the capabilities of primitive societies. The ancient site of Pumapunku in Bolivia features stones cut with such precision that modern engineers struggle to explain how they were crafted without advanced technology. But here's where the story takes an even more intriguing turn. In 1947, just as the cargo cults were still active in the Pacific, the Roswell incident occurred in New Mexico. The official explanation changed from flying saucer to weather balloon within days. Was this modern society's equivalent of trying to rationalize contact with advanced beings? Was this the official explanation's equivalent of trying to rationalize deaths from planes being serenely in the sky? These patterns suggest a profound possibility. Throughout human history, encounters with advanced beings have been interpreted through the lens of divinity. The Bible speaks of the Nephilim, beings who came from the heavens and interacted with humans. The Book of Enoch describes watchers who shared forbidden knowledge with humanity. These accounts parallel the Greek myths of gods descending from Mount Olympus to interact with mortals. The implications are staggering. What we've traditionally interpreted as religious or mythological accounts might actually be historical documentation of encounters with advanced civilizations. This doesn't diminish the spiritual aspect of these experiences. Rather, it suggests that our concept of divinity might be more complex than we've imagined. This understanding bridges the gap between ancient spiritual texts and modern phenomena. It explains why similar religious motifs appear across cultures separated by vast distances and time. It provides context for why certain knowledge has been preserved in esoteric teachings while being kept from the general population. As we begin to grasp the true nature of these ancient encounters, a crucial question emerges. If advanced beings have influenced human spiritual development throughout history, why has this knowledge been suppressed? And more importantly, how does this understanding relate to the consciousness slavery that keeps humanity from recognizing its true divine nature? The answer lies in understanding the mechanisms of spiritual control that have been in place for millennia. Part 6. Breaking Free from Consciousness Slavery. The Veil of Forgetfulness. In the hushed chambers of an ancient Egyptian temple circa 2700 BCE, a young initiate kneels before a high priest. The flickering torchlight casts dancing shadows on hieroglyphic walls as the priest speaks. To know thyself is to know God. This sacred teaching, later echoed through millennia, holds a profound truth about consciousness that powerful institutions have worked tirelessly to suppress. Consider the biblical story of the Garden of Eden. We're taught that eating from the tree of knowledge was humanity's great sin. But what if this narrative served a different purpose? What if it was designed to discourage humanity from questioning, from seeking deeper understanding of our divine nature? Throughout history, we see a pattern emerge. The Library of Alexandria's destruction, the persecution of Gnostic Christians, the burning of wisdom keepers during the Inquisition. Each event represents a systematic attempt to sever humanity's connection to higher consciousness. In 1244, when the Cathars, who believed in direct divine connection without priestly intermediaries, faced extinction at Montségur, they chose death over renouncing their truth. Their final act was to protect a mysterious manuscript said to contain knowledge of humanity's divine nature. The Catholic Church claimed victory, but the truth they sought to suppress survived in whispered traditions and hidden texts. Fast forward to modern times, we find ourselves in a more subtle but equally effective form of consciousness slavery. Instead of physical persecution, we face a barrage of distractions, social media algorithms, endless entertainment, consumer culture, all designed to keep us operating at lower frequencies of consciousness. This modern suppression mirrors an ancient Sumerian text that describes how the Anunnaki allegedly modified human consciousness to ensure compliance and prevent spiritual awakening. While the historical accuracy of such texts remains debatable, they point to a fundamental truth: consciousness can be manipulated and controlled. The turning point in this story comes from quantum physics. In 1925, Werner Heisenberg discovered that consciousness affects reality at the quantum level. This scientific validation of ancient wisdom sparked panic among those who had long suppressed such knowledge. If people realized they could directly influence reality through consciousness, the power structures maintaining social control would crumble. The evidence appears in seemingly unrelated places: the CIA's declassified documents on remote viewing, the Vatican's secret archives containing texts about consciousness manipulation, Tesla's suppressed research on frequency and consciousness. All pieces of a puzzle pointing to a profound truth: human consciousness is far more powerful than we've been led to believe. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. The very institutions that sought to suppress this knowledge inadvertently created the perfect conditions for its emergence. Like a pressure cooker building steam, the truth about human consciousness can no longer be contained. Today, we're witnessing what ancient prophecies called the Great Awakening. People worldwide are spontaneously breaking free from consciousness slavery. They're experiencing what mystics call the remembering, a recognition of their true divine nature. The explanation is both simple and profound. Consciousness slavery persists only through voluntary participation. The moment you recognize your own divine frequency, your direct connection to what some call God, the illusion begins to dissolve. This recognition isn't intellectual, it's experiential. It's what quantum physicists call collapsing the wave function of limited consciousness into infinite potential. As we venture deeper into this awakening, we must ask ourselves, What practical steps can we take to maintain and strengthen this connection to divine frequency? The answer lies in understanding specific techniques that ancient wisdom keepers preserved for precisely this moment in human history. As we conclude this journey into the nature of divine frequency, let's reflect on what we've uncovered together. We've seen how quantum physics validates ancient wisdom, how consciousness shapes reality, and most importantly, why this knowledge has been systematically suppressed throughout history. But this isn't just about understanding, it's about awakening. You now know that God isn't some distant figure demanding worship. The divine frequency exists within you, waiting to be accessed. You've learned that your consciousness is far more powerful than religious institutions have led you to believe. The question is, what will you do with this knowledge? This is where your journey truly begins. Consider this. If you're one of the few who've watched until the end, you're already demonstrating a readiness to break free from consciousness slavery. You're part of what ancient prophecies called the awakened ones, those who would help usher in humanity's great spiritual transformation. But knowledge without action is merely philosophy. I challenge you. Spend the next 7 days practicing the consciousness techniques we've discussed. Notice how your reality begins to shift. Pay attention to the synchronicities that appear. Most importantly, trust your direct experience over any external authority. Your experience matters to this community. Share in the comments below. Or have you experienced moments of connection with this divine frequency? What questions arose as you contemplated these truths? Remember, each comment you share helps others who are awakening to their true nature. Your insight might be exactly what another seeker needs to hear. If you found value in these revelations, help spread this suppressed knowledge. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell. We're building a community of awakened beings, and your presence matters. For those seeking deeper insights, we've only scratched the surface. Our next video will reveal ancient techniques for accessing higher consciousness frequencies, knowledge that's been hidden in plain sight for millennia. Thank you for having the courage to question everything you've been taught about God and consciousness. Your willingness to explore these truths makes you part of humanity's greatest awakening. Until next time, remember, the frequency you seek is already within you. The only question is, are you ready to tune in?